Good afternoon. Welcome to the NCHE's virtual conference breakout session, using maps to strengthen students' visual analysis. The NCHE would like to recognize the support of the sponsors we see here for making this virtual conference possible. Also, thanks goes to the National Humanities Center for its partnership in this virtual conference, and GoToWebinar for licensing support. The NHC has a wide catalog of online and in-person opportunities for scholars and educators to collaborate. Please visit their website at www.nationalhumanitiescenter.org. We encourage you to download the conference app, which has the most up-to-date information on the conference, and please take time to visit the virtual exhibit hall. You will find wonderful opportunities there for resources and connections. My name is Scott Smith, and I'm the librarian at Robertsville Middle School in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I have served on the Teacher Advisory Council for the National Humanities Center. You may use the question, and I am moderating this session. You may use the questions module on your dashboard to enter questions or comments during the session, and I'll be monitoring that throughout. Following the session, please take a few minutes to complete our survey. There is a slide at the end. In addition to providing valuable feedback, completing the survey puts you into a daily drawing for one of the special door prizes. So it is now my pleasure to turn the presentation over, using maps to strengthen students' virtual analysis, to Georgeanne Hribar, Thistle and Ann Canning.
Okay, next slide, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, seeing is believing, and powerful images are memorable. Think maybe if you have seen the picture of the Afghan woman with the green eyes who graced the cover of National Geographic. Unfortunately, she is copyrighted and could not appear on our cover, but students remember images. Does that carry over to the information attached to the image? And then another question is, does it matter? The process of using evidence to build an argument is really what we're teaching. Inquiry unlocks meaning. And we need to work on maximizing learning from the interrogation of a source. So pretend that was on the last slide, which showed nothing. So we're staying here. Maps provide a snapshot of a place in time and space. Places have characteristics, but what may be key to unlocking the full meaning of a map are the spatial questions. Extending the interrogation of the map to include spatial arrangements helps to look at the why there question, while historians look at the why then question. Next, please. Okay,
and
so
by the way, I'm sorry. By the way, there may be a slight delay sometimes depending on the side of the slide. So just be patient. It could take a moment or two to load onto your screen.
Cool. That gives me a chance to catch my breath.
Yes.
So our slide products are place-based narratives. And there's a couple additional questions we look at in terms of comparison. All of these come out in the reflect phase. Ready for the next slide. Okay, our product are place-based narratives of key historical time periods, such as American expansion overseas. We used a geographic information system to create story map journals. A geographic information system links the where, which is what's there and where is it located, to tables of information that are manipulated and presented via computer software. The map maker controls what you get to see, but the online maps are interactive, so you can check out the data for yourself, pose questions, and ponder the representation, aka the visual. Next, please. And thank you so much for doing this. Each of the 11 story map journals are organized with an overarching question. So I'm going to ask you to participate. Analyze this map image. What are some questions that you could ask of the map? Pretend you don't know what it is, but we do know it's in 1910 and 1970. So let's hear Scott tell us about some questions that you've entered.
Yeah, so those go into the question module on your dashboard. And presenters, by the way, you should be able to see those as well.
I hope. So you're looking at the map. What do you see? What questions do you have?
Okay, I think we have our first question.
Okay, and I'm not seeing anything, and I don't think I
Okay.
will. So we're going to
What
rely
is
on
the question comes from Skilled. What is represented by the darker colors?
you. Other questions? And if you want an answer to that, it is the percent of African Americans in that particular county.
There's another question. Hold on. What is the handwritten document in the bottom left corner?
Okay, other questions? Okay, are there any others, Scott?
Those are the only two that have been submitted so far.
Okay, so as a geographer, some questions I have is why are those places concentrated with the dark place? And all sorts of other questions. Why are people moving? Who moved? Why then? Do they have push or pull factors? Would the distance be significant? What else was happening during the time thing? And then the key one is how is this map misleading? And it's misleading because the cartographer, which you just happen to know, put all of the places in one state, in Louisiana. And people just didn't originate from one place. And then this asks for other questions that could have pictures is how did they travel? What was different between travel in 1910 and 1950? And how did the change in African American population affect the northern cities? So this is just one of a series of 4 maps. And the primary source is a letter to the Defender, which is an African American newspaper, telling of the journey north and the reasons for it. Next slide, please. Okay, this next slide shows the percent enslaved over time periods. So there could be a correlation with the African American populations in the previous map to the period of slavery. Notice to the left that, whoops, did I do that?
No, that was me, sorry.
But I touched the mouse at the same time period. The left has different time periods so that you could see changes. You can also see the development of the United States. This one is particular when you're looking at maps to think of the difference between a percent and raw number. These are expressed as a percent, and that equalizes for population. New York, California, and Texas, because of their huge populations, will always have more of whatever. But when you equalize by percent, you take over that misrepresentation or false impression. And we can watch things over time. Okay, the last slide is a commercial.
So next slide, please.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are 11 story map journals, and they can be accessed by the bit.ly address, which is actually in normal English, placing primary sources. And it uses the TPS analysis techniques, particularly observe, reflect, and question, although I question before I reflect. It integrates authentic sources, looks at historical thinking, provides a geographic context. Okay, throughout history, you always heard of the Battle of Midway. And so my question was, in making this map, is Midway to what? And sure enough, by looking at the connections from Midway out, each of those lines would have a distance. So students could maybe examine the pattern of the conquest of the islands, or make a plan. Do you go get the furthest islands and then work your way in? Or do you work your way out? The lessons that accompany this are on the Placing Primary Sources site. Were designed by teachers, made for teachers, and contain student guides that are in Google and Word so that they can be customized to the needs of the teachers and the curriculum. Okay, the topics include westward expansion, the Cold War, World War I, in terms of the American Expeditionary Force, World War II, the labor force and how people at home supported the progressive era, and the stepping stones to the Civil War, and more. So that concludes my portion, because I think the next slide goes into it. A final concluding thought is a image is worth 1,000 words, but according to Harm de Blay, a noted geographer, a map is worth 1,000,000 words. Okay, I'll mute myself.
Okay, before we go on to the next section, anyone with a question at this point? And remember, you may use the question link there on your dashboard. I'm not seeing any questions, so I guess we shall continue on.
Okay, this is Gay. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Thank you. So welcome, everybody. My name is Gay Thistle, and I'm here with Ann Canning. We're both from the Teaching with Primary Sources Eastern Region at Waynesburg University. And we're going to present to you today a strategy that we share about with using maps from the Library of Congress digital collections. And we have used this activity in our a class we teach online called PD Providers Institute. We teach this class 3 times a year and I can't even remember. No, I can't tell you how long it's been. It's been a long time that we've been teaching this class. So it's a good strategy. We have put this strategy into a C3 IDM blueprint format, formalized it a little bit more, and it can be found at that bit.ly link at the bottom of this slide. It's shown throughout the slideshow, so you'll have other times to access this this link to see the whole activity. We will just be doing part of it in our short time together today, but hopefully you will see how you can use this with your either students or in-service teachers or other educators for PD. It is a good way. We're going to be using maps of Cleveland because we were going to be in Cleveland, but you could substitute any maps from your location, from locations that your students are familiar with, into this whole activity and make it more relevant to your audience. So we're hoping this is a nice, we're going to present as like we were in Cleveland, but please keep that in mind that you can use this with other locations. You could also, we have this particular activity, we had it as a 3 to 5 grade activity because it's sort of doing change over time. That is the social studies, one of the main social studies ideas that need to be, that is taught in grade 3 to 5. But there are ways to make this work for all ages, as you hopefully will be able to see. So I am going to turn it over to Anne right now, and she will explain to you the structure of a C3 IDM blueprint if you're not familiar with it. They are a guaranteed inquiry lesson, in my opinion. So take it away,
And
Anne.
before you get started, I just wanted to let our participants know there are some links in the chat room or in the text chat area that's also in your dashboard. So those are also relevant to today's presentation.
Thank you, Scott. And also, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry, I left out one thing. If you would please put your name and your email address in the chat box also, we can understand who's here. I actually can't see who's here. And you could get some good resources from us about when our classes are offered. We're not gonna bomb you with stuff, but if you want information about the TPS Eastern Region, please put your name and email in the chat box. Thank you. Anne.
Great, thanks, Gay. So the next slide there, Scott. Great, thank you. This is the top part of the C3 blueprint that Gay was talking about. And as she said, we had designed this for grades 3 to 5, but it certainly could go up to 8. The C3 blueprint starts with a compelling question, and then if you look vertically, it goes from the question, the big question, to 3 supporting questions, and each of the 3 supporting questions will have an inquiry task that you want the students to perform, and they can actually do that. They can answer that supporting question using the primary sources. And so the primary sources that Gay is going to show you later on as she goes through her presentation will be the evidence that students will use to complete their formative performance task. So next slide, Scott, please. After the supporting questions have been answered in a C3 inquiry, you have a summative performance task. And generally speaking, the argument is a written statement, an essay, or even a term paper if the students are old enough. But the extension allows you to get into some more active kinds of learning or project-based learning. But the thing that excites me most about the C3 process is you always end with taking informed action. And we struggle a little bit, Gay and I, in terms of coming up with the informed action that would fit this particular mapping activity. But we decided that we would use one here that I think really is pretty good. You want the students to understand the concept that you have presented. In this case, its maps have a variety of uses. And then we wanted them to actually assess something that needed to be done in terms of maps. And the action we wanted them to take was to actually create a map of their own community, including important information and possibly things that they would like to add that would be positive things to improve their community. And the real civic action would be to share their map with a member of a local government, and or at least to some representative of the community that hopefully could help them take even more action. So that's our C3 inquiry. And Gay, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Just a question, Ann, on my part. Why use Google Maps and not Google Earth?
I'm going to let Gay answer that
We
question.
actually use Google Earth.
Yes, did I
Oh,
say Google?
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
This went through lots of changes. Now we've used Google Earth, and that's the map we'll be sharing as a Google Earth map. Sorry, we
okay,
missed that.
sorry. Okay, take it away, Gay.
Okay, next slide, please. And we want to make this interactive. This was going to be an interactive if we were face-to-face. So I'm trying to keep this as interactive as we're going to try to do it. So use the chat box to respond to prompts that I give you. And I think you can get a lot more out of this. So the first step on the C3 blueprint is staging the compelling question. And as Ann pointed out in the structure, so with your students, you just come up with a question that you think they'd understand. So how would you get from a location like your home or the school to the playground? Or how would you get to the post office, or examples here, or the grocery store? So asking them how they would figure out how to navigate and explain how, directions to somebody else. And in the case of this conference, I might have asked, how do we get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Because we were going to be close to that at our hotel. And we would have, I think most of us would have been at a great Library of Congress reception the night before. But we're not doing that. So anyway, so you would ask pertinent, understanding questions to your students and record their ideas about it, because you can use this information in the end and figure and have them understand how help them understand our question is how technology and mapping has changed over time. So your students would answer this question of how to navigate very differently from students in the 1800s and the 1900s. So let's go to the next slide and start exploring. So Scott.
Excuse me, just a moment. Yeah. Yes. Just a reminder to participants to use the questions area for comments as well as questions rather than the chat feature.
Oh, there's a question thing. Am I missing something maybe?
Yeah, I think you and I can see the chat, but I'm not sure the audience.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
haven't been able to see their questions. Okay, so anyway, so Scott will read your questions as you put them in, or your comments. I'm going to be asking for, so our first supporting question in the IDM blueprint is, what can a panoramic map tell us about the culture and environment in Cleveland in the late 1800s? So take a minute here and to observe. I just want observations. There's a delay in the typing into this, so go ahead and type in when you can, and then we'll get a few answers, share a few answers. You can also look at this map with the links provided to you by Scott earlier. And one feature of the Library of Congress map collection is that you can zoom and pan without downloading all the maps. And you could probably have a better look at this image if you'd like. Okay, Scott, have there been any comments?
There's one that I just typed. Where are the floodplains for the river?
Oh, okay, interesting. Floodplain. So you notice the river coming down from the top of near the top or the middle of the page to the middle of the page into the harbor. Any other observations on this map? How about dates? I gave you late 19th century. Are there any dates that give us exactly places this in time? Is there any industry?
Okay, here's a question. What are the smokestacks in the distance?
Okay, so someone noticed smokestacks. We'll save the questions for later. Okay, right now we're doing observations.
Okay. Water is the focus.
Water is the focus, okay? That's the main part. That's what your eye draws your eyes to, the water.
Different vessels are portrayed.
Okay, different vessels. Maybe we're looking at the different boats that we see in the harbor. We got sailboats. We've got something that looks like steam boats, maybe, or some other kind of boats.
The different rivers that are
Different
flowing
rivers.
through the
Okay.
picture. Yes, through the map.
Great. Thank you for noticing the geographic features. Okay, so somebody noticed industry. I like that. How about,
Grid-like patterns on
okay.
roads on the land.
Okay. Another question to consider, we're going on from observations now as more inferences. How was this map made? And how did the creator get the information to make this map? And Georgeanne has pointed out the river is very curved. I can see our presenters' information. Any responses to how this map was made and how the creator got its information? We don't have answers. It's okay. We can keep them up there as a question. Okay, let's move on to the next map. And again, these maps are linked earlier in the chat box. You can have a map, the map number 2. This is linked because this one isn't as clear as the other one, as you can see. But again, let's look at this one. So think about the other one, what you saw on the other one, what has changed here. And I want you to give me evidence of, is this for, I want you to answer this question and give me evidence for it. Is this map later or earlier than the first map? And give me because, why you say that. So I think it's earlier because blah, 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 blah. So you're doing, I think, because. Any answers there? Scott?
I'm looking. Hold on.
Okay. Georgeanne has one. She thinks that it
I
might
don't
be
see one.
earlier.
Yes.
Okay, because there are no smokestacks in the background, but it's more crowded in the foreground. So, but she still thinks this is earlier. Any other comments on or ideas about if this is earlier or later?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the questions area. It's kind of hard to, let's see. There is one comment. Does this map cover a range of years? So like it would have been done and then filled in over time.
Not sure of that. The maps have a creation time when they were published, so we're assuming they're covering that year.
1877, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide, please.
Oops.
So if we, just back one. So if we think about both maps, so we're going to go back and compare and contrast both of the maps once we have both of them. As you can see, the second map was 10 years later. And when you really can get on the Library of Congress's website and use the zoom and pan feature, especially on that second map, you can see that it's much more crowded, as Georgeanne had pointed out. And even it's much more much more crowded is there's more buildings on the background, whereas in the first map there's a lot of green space in that background. But the first map is definitely a clearer drawing. So the techniques for the drawing and creating the maps are different in these. They're both drawings, but they're different printing processes that make them appear differently. How about the technology for creating? So how did the creator get this information to draw this map?
Someone had commented that perhaps it was done with a hot air balloon.
Oh, I love that. Okay, great. Okay, a hot air balloon. That was definitely a technology that was up there to give this bird's eye view. These are called bird's eye view maps. These panoramic maps. Thank you. Okay, and also probably knowledge of place. I mean, they probably understood, New Cleveland, been in Cleveland, and could help, draw the maps from that way also. Another point I wanted to bring up, you would summarize the maps, you'd allow your students to go back and forth and discover new things as they found it in the one site, compare and contrast what's the same, what's different. These maps can both be found in the Panoramic Map collection of the Library of Congress. And you can, there's thousands and thousands of these maps that were made at the time, similar, these panoramic bird's eye views. There's even one for my little town of Waynesburg. So as I'm telling you, you can substitute your maps in there. Even your little town maps, you might be able to find a few versions. The cities, for sure, you can see progressive versions. The littler, like my town only had one map, but they can compare that map to today is what we've done in the past. Okay, let's move on to the next supporting. Let's answer this question. I'm sorry, we got to answer this question. And so what can panoramic maps tell us about the culture and the environment of Cleveland in the late 19th century? So what can we say about life in Cleveland in the 19th century from looking at these maps? Go ahead and chat, put it in the question box, your comments in the question box. The land is flat and everything looks the same. It's a comment I see.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions. I don't know if that feature is not working correctly or.
Okay. All right. So we're assuming you're writing things, and I'm sorry we can't read out your comments. I appreciate your participation. We'll go on to the next slide. So this is moving on to the supporting question number 2. So we're comparing and contrasting maps from the late 1800s to this map happens to be 1958. And this map, I'm not giving you the link to it, that there's the citation on the slide, but it's not live. But I'm not giving you the link to it because this was a map of the whole United States that I clipped up and focused on our area of interest here. So questions I would ask here would be, first of all, how does this map compare to the other maps? And then secondly, we'd look at like what changed to make this map a map that people used. So let's go to that question. What changed to make this map from those other 2 maps we analyzed to 1958? What changed to make this map the new map? Oh, I see. Okay. Maybe.
Oh, there we go. There, I see a question. The answer is automobiles. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so good. So this is the road map. So what it changed? Yes, automobile. So we're heavy into the automobile time. Automobiles came in 1900s. So plenty of times to build roads. And then we can also talk about with this map, okay, so how did that change the culture of Cleveland? And maybe, you know, a lot of times the downtowns were bypassed and stuff like that. There's all kinds of things you can get into for this. But okay, so here's just another kind of map we explored. And then we'll move to the next slide, please. And this is the Google Earth map. And if we were live in the conference, I would have pulled this map up, and we would have started as right over downtown and then moved around sideways and oriented it. I couldn't do that because I figured I'd lose most of you with the bandwidth issues. So I've tried to make the bird's eye view, or the view closest to our other maps, so that we could kind of, since we're not familiar with Cleveland, I know I'm not from Cleveland. I need the same perspective to understand where I'm at. So let's take a few minutes to look at this map, think about what we've seen already, and see if we can identify features to place ourselves in and see what is different and what is the same. Any comments, Scott?
I'm looking. There's a bunch
Okay.
going on.
Oh,
It's hard.
okay.
It's really hard. This question feature is not the best.
Yeah, I just thought I could be able to see these questions. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
putting everything on you.
Oh, that's all right. Keeps me awake. All right. The river. Someone commented about the river, how it is portrayed here instead of the previous maps.
Okay, they think that it seems similar to me,
Yes.
which I noted.
Mm-hmm.
Any other observations?
That's all that I see right now, but it just kind of pops in no particular order. So
Okay. I'll just keep chit-chatting here, and if
okay,
something comes
sorry.
up, let me know. So this is a Google Earth, and so how was this made that was different than the other maps? And so you ask your students to explore that question, and they would understand this is photographs, they might even understand raster and all that other stuff, and that maybe this was made with airplane or drones, and they bring up all these different things that have changed. So you could really look at how each of the maps was made, how the creator got the information for the maps over time, and then also look at different cultural changes over all of those maps. So some of the things that are the same in this Google Earth map I observed was that waterfront is pretty much the same. There's still from the river entrance, there's still like 3 bays, and those are shown in the 2 other panoramic maps. What's new is that airport it's on the right side of your image. And I was looking at this earlier today, and I was like, I bet you that land was not there. That probably came from when they dug all the skyscraper basements, the supports for the skyscrapers. That downtown Cleveland that you see is kind of shadowy. Those are all skyscrapers, and those are the shadows from the skyscrapers. And again, if
Okay,
this was live, we could zoom in. Go ahead,
yeah.
Scott.
We have a couple of comments. One is that the interstate highways look like rivers on the map,
Great. Thank you for noticing that.
and
Okay.
that the lakefront still looks largely the same. That
Okay.
it looks very similar. There, I mean, the buildings are different, but that the actual geography,
Yes.
and again the role of the river within the city.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that.
Gay,
Yes.
is that a stadium I see?
Yes, that is a stadium. So we got a big sports stadium. I don't know which one it is. Do you know, Georgeanne? She's from Cleveland.
Well, it would be where the Cleveland Browns were, but
Oh, okay.
also the airport, besides being landfill, also underlaid by garbage.
Ooh, thank you.
Yes, somebody had commented on the airport, and another comment was that you can still see the grid feature that was visible on in the previous maps.
Yes, so like, yeah, outside this, yeah, the grid feature seems like it's the same too. And I think this is kind of a very interesting, I think, for what this city went through from 1877 till today it's pretty amazing that a lot of it is the same. That's what surprised me. Most of your maps, you're not going to see that when you compare and contrast. One other note I want to make, just going off on another topic. I know using maps, you can do social studies, you can do geography, you can do economics, you can do all kinds of topics. But a STEM topic here is that river. So that and Georgeanne, correct me. I'm going to say Cuyahoga, and you told me that's wrong, and I couldn't remember what the correct pronunciation of the river is.
If I get my mic.
You're going.
Yeah, you're good.
You're good, Georgeanne. You're off, Georgeanne. You had it. Anyway, the Cuyahoga, which I'm saying Cuyahoga, thank you. Cuyahoga River, you know, the Cuyahoga River there is famous. And it is famous because it went on fire in 1968. And it is a reason that the Clean Waters Act was passed in 1972. That made such a sensation that this water was on fire because of all the chemicals that were dumped into it and accumulated at this point in the river. Because as you saw, you know, we had industry way back in the maps. There's been industry all along this river, dumping all their stuff, their waste in this river. It was on fire in 1968. By 1972, Congress passed the Clean Waters Act. And this is why the Clean Waters Act was so important to the people and our congressmen people at the time. It's relevant for today because our current administration is trying to dismantle the Clean Waters Act. But bringing up history like this of like where this legislation came from, why it was so important to the nation at that time, is important to understand how history shapes us and how we don't need to go backwards again. So that's a STEM connection, looking at that. And I know that river is the same. And I was like, that's not like for a river to be the same throughout this, you know, hundreds of years. I went down a rabbit hole and started investigating that. And I said, hey, that's off topic. So I stopped. But that's another thing to look at, is how that river was maybe kept, you know, dredged and kept in that shape, or maybe it's just the way it is.
And we have another question, I think, that's relevant, or a comment about in the two previous maps, the ships and boats were very prominent in the maps, but in this map, except for the little bit down at the right-hand corner, there are no visible boats or ships.
That's a great comment. And I actually thought of that when I first saw this map too. I was really surprised that there weren't, lots of ships and boats and stuff like that. Yeah, great comment.
Okay, another comment, Gay. In this map, there seems to be a barrier between the silt from the river and Lake Erie, which wasn't in the other maps. So I wonder if that dates back to the pollution abatement.
It might have. And I mean, Lake Erie has cleaned up immensely. And there is actually a great timeline online I found that has the Cuyahoga rivers, like a timeline of the Cuyahoga River and the cleanup of it. And Lake Erie now I swim at Presque Isle, and it's like a beach day, and you can see your feet in 4 feet of water. So it's really fairly clean water, as far as I can tell, and very pleasant anyway. So they've done a lot to clean up the river and the lakes since the Clean Water Act. We'll take the next slide, please. So we can use the evidence we've gathered from evaluating all of these maps, and we can have the students answer the question, how has technology changed the way we make and use maps? And then we move on to the summative task and the taking informed action tasks that Anne described earlier. You know, you can use them, you can adapt to your own community. doing something more relevant, have the students make a poster of how things have changed, have them draw their own maps, or have them draw a map of a, something that they want to exist in their community. So there's all kinds of applications for looking at maps, and it reaches a lot of subjects when you do this. You can bring math in if you still look at at distances and ratios and all that. So you can go to the next slide. So just to, we'll take some questions here, but just to sum it all up, any of these resources are free for you to use that we have provided. This is your tax dollars at work, the Library of Congress. All the maps, all the images are from the Library of Congress, except for the Google Earth map, but that is a free application also. And so you're free, and the blueprint, the IDM blueprint, please take it and use it at your will. Again, your tax dollars at work. So our contact information is there. Please contact us if you have any questions or any needs, and we'll take any questions that you might have.
And I will try to locate those questions if indeed I
Okay,
can
all right.
find them. It's really complicated, so.
Yeah, no, this is not the best of formats.
It is not the best, no,
Yeah,
not.
but it's been fabulous. I mean, we can do
Yes,
this.
the information's great. The question part has been.
My friends are kind of jealous, like, you have something to do, Gay. That's great. And so we're doing this meeting, you got something to do. Everyone's going a little stir crazy.
Perhaps just a question from my part
Yes.
because so many of us in schools throughout the country are going to online education or going to distance ed while their schools are closed.
Yep.
That some resources maybe you could recommend that would really help, especially teachers of history and geography.
Well, these maps are wonderful. The map collection of the Library of Congress are really, really substantial. I mean, here is one from 1507. This is a fabulous Waldseemüller's map, and but into current day, fairly current day maps like the panoramic maps I showed you. And maybe you can put these maps into like Google Annotate and have your students annotate. Like, you can ask them questions and have them like do kind of what Georgeanne was showing, like bring in sources to answer questions, or bring in, make comments directly on the maps, even on a, if I don't know what kind of platform you're going to be teaching on, putting a map up there, and if hopefully it's interactive and the students can interact with the map. I know we teach this we use the comparing maps strategy in our PD Providers Institute, and in our we use Canvas, and in Canvas you can give the students access to tools to circle or to write comments or to so they can interact with the maps. So I think be a great lesson doing exactly this if you want, or adapting it with your maps from your area. But Library of Congress has fabulous sources for teachers, and they're ready-made sources.
Right, I am not seeing any additional questions. If you did submit a question and I haven't found it yet, I apologize. But
we're at time pretty
yes,
much. I
we
know
are at a
there's
time.
no time
Yes.
between anything here. So
All
thank
right.
you very much. Please put your emails in the chat box and we can maybe gather them, I'm hoping, and we will send you information about anything that our Eastern region is offering. All of our training is free and online mostly. Thank you.
A commercial, don't forget the placing primary sources story maps are already done, and that could be something for students to peruse.
All right,
And
awesome. All right, just a reminder to complete the survey, and that way you become eligible for the door prizes. Round of applause for our presenters today. Wonderful information for all of us to use, and that does it for this session.
Thank you, Scott.
You are welcome.